We're back with more of our breaking news coverage out of the Middle East. And right now we have some new information. The U.S. expecting Iran to launch a ballistic missile attack against military and government sites in Israel, not civilian sites, according to a senior White House official and Defense Department official. Joining us now is NBC's Courtney Kube. Also with us, retired Major John Spencer, chair of urban warfare studies at the Modern War Institute at West Point. Courtney, what more can you tell us about what U.S. officials are expecting?
Yeah, so the more that this develops as the morning goes on, Anna, the more that this looks like this will have a very similar pattern to what we saw when Iran attacked Israel back in April. But there are still some differences that we're starting to get a little bit more information on. Now, number one, the similarities. You'll recall that back in April, most of the targets were Israeli military or government structures or locations. So a military base in one case, as opposed to Iran intentionally targeting civilian infrastructure or locations. Now, I say that the majority of the projectiles that were fired, of the 300 plus that were fired in April, the majority of them didn't get anywhere near Israel. There were only a small number that actually impacted, and most of them were actually shot down before they were even in Israeli airspace or maybe just inside of Israeli airspace. So where we expect it to be potentially different this time is, yes, U.S. officials are still expecting a large number of projectiles, potentially similar in nature to what happened in April, but it's sort of the nature of those projectiles that are expected to be a little bit different here. So U.S. officials have been saying that they're expecting potential ballistic missile attack. We may see more ballistic missiles this time as opposed to other sorts of projectiles like drones, loitering munitions, the sorts of things that we saw in April. Those are expected, according to officials, to be smaller in nature as opposed to potentially more ballistic missiles this time. And why that's significant is that even if it's a smaller number of overall launches or projectiles, if they have a larger payload, if they fly faster, if they are more difficult to take down, it could present a larger threat. Now, in addition to that, officials are looking at the possibility that Iran could launch a large number of these missiles at once, with the goal of overwhelming the air defense systems of Israel, of the United States, who's already vowed to help defend Israel, and of any other allies who might also be called in or who be willing to help here. Now, U.S. officials also have stressed they have a very robust presence of military in the region. They are confident in their ability to shoot down these projectiles. The big question is, has anything started? As of now, Anna, U.S. officials still do not have any confirmation that anything has started. But remember that since April, it's not just the U.S. and Israeli military who've been at this very high state of alert and readiness. Iran has been as well. They have been, since April, really ready to launch another attack like this in a very quick order, very quick succession. So the question here is, if it's more ballistic missiles that they're launching off, what kind could they be? Some of them are based on how long it potentially takes just to get them loaded on a launcher. Some of them have different types of fuel that are used that could take a little bit longer to ready. These are all the questions that we're asking, trying to figure out exactly what we could see here. But again, at this point, we still don't have any information that any attack has started, right, but officials still believe it could be imminent.
Courtney, is the U.S. repositioning at all or doing anything to be prepared to defend Israel?
So the reality is they're more prepared now than they were in April when you look at just the sheer volume of U.S. military assets in the region. At least 40,000 U.S. troops. There's an aircraft carrier, a number of ballistic missile defense ships. They literally have the ability to shoot down incoming ballistic missiles. They have been there since April. After the killing of Hassan Nasrallah on Friday, the U.S. surged some more assets into the region. Some of those actually, frankly, are still making their way. But even with that, the U.S. military and the Pentagon has been very confident that they have the ability to defend Israel. But again, this could look a little, well, overall, the expectation is this will be similar to April. It could look different in that we may see more missiles, which I mean, frankly, they have the potential to just be more destructive than some of these drones and loitering munitions that we saw in April.
All right, Courtney Kube, please keep us posted. Thanks for the reporting. So, Major Spencer, let me get your thoughts and your read on this situation. We have this new reporting that Iran's specifically planning to target Israeli military sites not civilian sites. And of course, what Courtney just laid out there about the potential tactics that they'll use or weaponry that would be used here. What does all of it tell you about Iran's intentions?
It tells me this would be a significant major escalation. While we say that Israel escalates when it defends itself, for the Islamic regime in Iran to do this, it would be significantly problematic. And I trust what they're targeting about as much as I trust any other terrorist regime. So I think that's problematic. You have millions of Israeli civilians living in bomb shelters under this threat of a nation state. While, yes, these Islamic regime proxies like Hamas and Hezbollah have been attacking Israel, when you have the nation state, the Islamic regime in Iran attacking Israel is not acceptable, and there clearly would be expected to be consequences no matter what they're targeting with what. I mean, one missile, one drone is one too many. That it's very problematic.
Do you have any concerns about Israel's ability to defend against attacks like this if Iran's trying to target military sites? We know that last attack that came from Iran back in April with the 300-plus drones and missiles fired from Iran were largely captured before they even reached any site in Israel. And in fact, it was the CIA director who said 4 or 5 actually impacted Israel. None of them did any significant damage.
Right. No, I'm very confident from what I know about Israel and the United States, its protection and defense of Israel, that they will be able to interdict any attack. But that's also, I don't want that to be an excuse for, Iran doing this like last time. Well, you knocked them all, you knocked them all down, but it's still like there are rules within the international global order, and you can't just attack whenever you feel like it another nation and not expect consequences for those attacks, even if you're not successful, where action actually matters. And this would be really so absolutely concerning and very dangerous situation.
And then there's the what's next, because we heard from the Secretary of Defense in the readout from his call with his Israeli counterpart that there would be serious consequences for Iran if Iran were to strike against Israel. We heard from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu last week at the United Nations telling Iran, if you strike us, we will strike back, and there's nowhere out of reach for Israel to go. What kind of retaliation or response could then this trigger?
Yeah, I mean, it would be very calculated, of course, but even after the April attack, Israel showed amazing restraint, but also demonstrated to the Islamic regime in Iran that they could penetrate all of their air defenses. So you would think that would establish enough deterrence for Iran not to do this, but it seems to not. So yes, it's actually, I mean, this would trigger a very problematic situation where, again, the world would be asking Israel to show restraint, while there would still have to be some type of consequences just to establish the deterrence. And nobody wants this. So I think the international body, the international community as a whole, needs to signal the Islamic regime in Iran, don't do it.
Major John Spencer, thank you for joining us on this breaking news. And now let's bring in NBC's Matt Bradley from Beirut, Lebanon.